My name is Aaron Zalkins. I play the trombone. I'm a doctoral student at CU Boulder.
And I'm Max McNutt. I'm a trumpet player, and I'm also a doctoral student at the University of Colorado. Well, I think the biggest thing is that, well, we play instruments, and so we have, gigs and performances that are basically all been canceled because any big ensemble can't really perform right now, right? Any orchestras or bands. So we've done some outside performances, but it's at a far smaller amount.
It's tough. I'm both of us, though, we are TAs at Boulder and we live off of that. I think a majority of both of our income comes from playing freelance gigs. And for me, I had just so many things lined up that all of a sudden my income completely just was cut in half because there's nothing the entire summer. And also it's scary because many professional auditions and professional orchestras, that's what we're trying to do eventually, is play in a professional orchestra. They have canceled the auditions because the future is so uncertain for classical music. So not only right now is it affecting us, it's also just, we're kind of just in limbo seeing what will happen. Sure. So we are performing an arrangement that Max has done of Ave Maria. And we're talking about we're not particularly religious, so I don't think any real religious connotation is supposed to be taken from it, but we, feel that it's said that brass instruments are some of the closest to the human voice. And so we thought it would be like really meaningful to collaborate and make something just really beautiful and uplifting for people to listen to in some time that is, just been incredibly difficult for everybody.
And it's something that everyone can recognize. It's a melody that everyone knows, even if they're not religious. And it was also at the beginning of COVID, Andre Bocelli gave a big concert where he went and performed in this big cathedral, and he sang this at the end, which was pretty cool.
I think we will be putting it on YouTube, as well as most likely on both of our websites.
My name is Bill McCrossan, and I am a professional musician, mostly bass, upright bass, some electric bass also. I work all the different jazz clubs and different restaurants and clubs that have live jazz.
So my name is Jahanara Laura Mangus, and I'm a musician and an artist of various disciplines, and also a teacher in the Sufi tradition, or I should say one of the Sufi traditions. I also teach out of a couple other traditions, and I utilize music in my teaching, so and the arts as well. I teach as an artist.
Fortunately, miraculously, some of the pandemic money that's been coming in and unemployment, it's really helped quite a bit because everything came to a screeching halt. Obviously, when you're a live performing professional musician, all the places that were hosting music before this obviously can't. There's no question about it. It's not like we don't want to. It's the governor said no live music, or it's just starting to come back a little bit now. Some of it's been outside gigs. We've stayed afloat a little bit doing some live stream stuff. There's a performance space in Lafayette called the Muse. It's an amazing performance space, and we've done a bunch of live stream concerts there, and we get some donations from that, but it's not like like we used to. So again, we're just getting by with what we can.
So it's really cut down on the avenues for making money, but it's increased the opportunities for exploring creativity. So although I'm not, most of the work that I do is with people, and it's important to actually be together with people because so much of it is happening in a related way where being together and really feeling the energy that's happening between us is important. So I have been able to go a tiny bit online, but not very much. So it's really cut down on my performances and teaching opportunities. I have been able to make a lot of Negonis while we've been on this lockdown.
I was playing one of these instruments that not made by my friend Johanna, but I was playing. And as we're packing up, my friend Johanna just had been going to the mailbox, I think, and was like, "Oh my God, I've been praying to meet someone who knows about some of these instruments. I make them, and I live like right around the corner." From that point on, we've been fast friends, kind of like co-creative partners in this endeavor. They're gourd instruments. This is what they kind of look like. So there's a gourd, there's a skin on top, the strings, right? And she makes her own pegs. Sometimes she uses reclaimed wood for the neck to connect with music that's so different from the regular jazz stuff that I'm doing on the bass. Is huge. So we figured, why not share this with the community? What we're hoping to do is find a really beautiful day, and on the green of the Vista Village mobile home park here, we can we can get a bunch of folks to come out and have it be a little like a show and tell, if that makes sense, to talk about the instruments. People have questions, they're very curious about it.
And so one of the ways that I see our project being of value is that every time we've played these instruments for people, it has really touched people. People have had healing experiences, people have had really magical things happen. So to be able to offer something that has such spirit and creativity to help soothe people's souls and their hearts as they're going through whatever hard times, even beyond the pandemic. And that these instruments, although they are inspired from Africa, they're actually being made in their backyard, right here where they lived. So to be able to share something with them. And I kind of envision, even at a point, maybe at the very end of the performance, after we've had the question and answer, that maybe we would invite some people to come up and be able to play these instruments, because really the magic in them is the way that they make you feel. They retune every cell in your body. So I see it also as kind of an opportunity to offer some peace and some healing.
My name is Amanda Berg Wilson, and I'm a Boulder-based theater artist who works both in freelance opportunities, and I'm also the co-founder and the artistic director of the Catamounts. And we are a Boulder-based theater company specializing in what we call theater for the adventurous palate. Oh goodness, how has COVID-19 not affected my life and livelihood? First and foremost, I was set this summer to be the assistant director and one of the cast members in the world premiere of Theater of the Mind, which was an immersive theater piece that's being created by Mala Gaonkar and former Talking Heads frontman and Rock and Roll Hall of Famer David Byrne. So Theater of the Mind was about the biggest, well, not about, it was most definitely the biggest sort of moment of my career, getting to work on this incredibly innovative piece of theater with one of the most, I think, brilliant contemporary artists on the planet. And as a result of COVID, that project has been postponed until hopefully next summer, but its postponement date has not been announced. So I had been working on that piece for a year almost. So that was kind of the most heartbreaking and dramatic and immediate fallout for me as a theater artist from the COVID crisis. I guess it was about a month into the lockdown. A friend of mine posted a poem of an Irish poet who had just died. And Boland says, I mean, I said to myself, the world was small then. Surely a great city must have been missed. I miss our old city, white pepper, white pudding, you and I meeting under fan lights and low skies to go home in it. Maybe what really happened is, and she's talking about how people could just one day lose a whole city. Maybe what really happened is this. The old fable makers searched hard for a word to convey that what is gone forever and never found it. And so, in the best traditions of where we come from, they gave their sorrow a name and drowned it. So there was just something about that poem that I was like, it just unleashed something in me. I just finally felt this permission to mourn, to just say, it's okay to feel grief around this moment. Yes, I'm healthy. Yes, my kid is healthy. Yes, I live in this beautiful part of the earth where I have the mountains outside my door and I can still get out and breathe fresh mountain air, even if I have to pull my mask up and down every single time I pass somebody, you know. But also, it's okay to give name to this sorrow, or to at least try to process it and to call it out. And I was like, okay, how do you name sorrow and drown it? How do you name sorrow and drown it? I just kept sort of going back and forth on that. And I had heard of this thing before called seed paper. And I was like, I wonder if there's something to like being able to write the sorrows down and then do something with that paper. And then I thought, if I gave seed paper to people, they could write their sorrows down. You have to soak the seed paper in order to germinate it, in order to germinate the seeds in the seed paper. And then you bury it. And I just thought, well, that is a ritual. That is a ritual, you know? And I was like, oh, you know, I have this sweet neighborhood. And I started to see my neighbors more and I started to learn their names. So I delivered these little packages of seed paper in the poem and a description of the ritual in which to engage to my neighborhood. And then I also did it as part of the virtual feed event that we had. I contributed towards that. So I now have, and I haven't posted all of them yet, but a lot of photos of people having written down their sorrows on that seed paper. And then also photos of the flowers that are blooming from those drowned, buried, named sorrows. This project was a great opportunity for me to really think about, like, if I can't put bodies in space, how can I still communicate some of that same stuff to a dispersed audience? So that was cool. It was a neat opportunity.
My name is Brittany Free, and I'm an artist based in North Boulder. I work out of the Crowd Collective, which is off of Broadway, and it's a shared studio space that roughly houses around 10 artists. My work primarily consists of resin, pigments, and ink, and it tends to be very bright, very cheerful, happy, which is exactly how I want someone to feel when they experience my work for the first time. So COVID-19 has definitely taken its toll on the scene for local artists. Many of us normally rely on public events to gain exposure and to sell our work. And of course, this year, all of those public events like First Fridays, the Open Studios Tour, which is in October, the Firefly Market, local art fairs, all of these things have been canceled. So it's left far fewer avenues for exposure to show our work and to sell our work. My COVID-19 work project consists of leaving free artwork in public places around Boulder. So I start off by photographing the artwork, and I put the image on social media with clues to its exact location. So recently I've left art on Pearl Street in Chautauqua Park, around Wonderland Lake. So more notable places, I'm not going to be leaving anything at the top of Bear Peak. I'm not getting up there. So I leave a note with the artwork explaining that it's both free and sanitized. And I ask that whoever finds it lets me know in some way, whether it be social media or an email. They let me know that it's found, and then I can update Instagram and Facebook saying it's been claimed. And yeah, that's the gist of it. I essentially leave free artwork out for someone to come and find, and hopefully it brightens their day. And yeah, we could just all use a little more of that right now. But since I've started this, I've had such a great response from our community of artists. There's other people that are in Boulder. There's a few artists in Longmont who are all now doing the same thing and are also leaving out free artwork. So they'll call it Art Drops or Free Art Friday, or there's all kinds of names for it. But it's just been really cool to see other people jumping in and doing their own form of these art scavenger hunts in their own neighborhoods. I've got some really cool responses. So one of the best ones was this kid wrote to me, and he was like 14 or 15, and he said, my mom was on a hike this morning and she found one of your pieces, but she doesn't know how to use social media. So she asked if I'd send you a message, and she's so excited about it. And he sent me a picture of the work, and she had already hung it up within an hour, like on top of the kitchen counters it was hanging up. So that was really cool to get that kind of response back almost immediately. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the Office of Arts and Culture for putting these work projects together. It's been a great way for us to contribute to the community and just to stay connected at the same time.
Well, my name is Cara Luneau, and I've lived in Boulder since 1983. And I spent 30 years as a psychotherapist, although I had an undergraduate degree in fine arts. So in 2010, the county laid off a whole bunch of us. I don't know if you remember that, but it was the last recession. A whole bunch of us got laid off, and I got back into art, and it turned out to be a really good change for me, just really great. And so I started painting again, and I did, a tremendous amount of painting for the last decade. And I started a business in 2014, and the business is I invite artists from all over the country. Most of them are academics, and I make all the arrangements, and they come to Boulder, and I host to teach. They come to teach, and I host the events. And it's been hugely successful. Most of my events have filled up. And it's just been really fun. There's been a lot of perks in it for me, and I love the business. Well, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the introvert's dream. I've had a lot of time to myself, which as an artist, I really appreciate, and it's been a very productive time for me, actually. So that's been great. And I'll just say one more thing about that. I was going to a studio to paint several times a week, but it's a shared studio, so I got nervous about that after COVID. So I got out my camera and started taking a lot of pictures, and have done a whole new body of work of photographs. And if you'd like to see those, I love that. They're at caraluno.com. So anyway, I'm very excited about that. And what else? Well, I had to cancel all my events this year, so it was a part-time income, but still very critical to, well, not critical, but helpful to my lifestyle. The project I came up with was to invite the neighborhood to submit artwork and for an online exhibit. So the online exhibit is on Instagram, and it's on a page called Sheltering Whittier, because I live in the Whittier neighborhood. It's been very, very slow to take off. I actually leafleted the whole neighborhood, and I only got, I think I only have 6 pieces of art out. So some of the feedback I've gotten from parents in the neighborhood is that their kids, the parents have their hands full just trying to get the kids to do their online school stuff. So I'm gonna do another big splash, or whatever you call it, probably at the end of this week or over Memorial Weekend, because school gets out, public schools end this week. So hopefully parents will be looking for things for their kids to do, and I'm hoping to get a better turnout. And I wanted artwork from all ages, not just kids, but so I'm not quite sure why more adults haven't responded, but anyway, I'll keep at it. But it's been nice to engage with the neighborhood around it. That's been fun. And I'm hoping that when things calm down and we can all gather again, we'll have a physical exhibition with a big party. So I'll get lots of food and have the neighborhood actually come together physically, which will be much more gratifying, and look at the art and just visit. So.
I'm Devin Patrick Hughes. I'm conductor and music director. A couple orchestras I work with here are the Boulder Symphony in Boulder and the Arapahoe Philharmonic in Denver. Well, I think it's, I think one of the challenges that we have right now is that kind of all the problems with America are kind of come to a head now. Especially, I think, in the music business, there's a lot of independent contractors, like people who are falling in between the cracks. And obviously with events and sporting events and musical events, concerts, probably not happening as we know them for a while. I think, the effects on people like me and people in our field are immense, are devastating. So I think it's going to be really important for governments to step up. I know when Macron in France just talked about how crucial their cultural institutions are. And he basically said that, you know, they need to look out, they need to support their artists. I don't think that's going to happen on the national level. So I think our state governments and city governments are definitely going to need to step up and support basically contractors of all areas that are suffering from COVID-19, because this is not going to be something that, you know, we're going to keep making music and doing whatever we can to keep people's connection to the arts and keep inspiring people and keep music and culture alive. But I think also the city governments and state governments need to step up and show their support and show how meaningful art and culture is at a time like this. Yeah, so we're just in these crazy times, we're trying to put music in front of people, to show that the musicians locally are still working and making music.
Hi, so I'm Dara Schumann. I'm a ceramic artist based out of Boulder. So I would say the biggest thing, it's actually like directly affected my art career and how I'm like going about it. So I pretty much like all of my resources were through Studio Arts Boulder, the Boulder Pottery Lab. And so when coronavirus hit, they shut down. So I was like, oh my God, like I can't do anything. And we're allowed to like bring clay home and work at home, but I didn't have a wheel. I didn't have, you know, any of the resources that I had there. So I had to just like figure out how to adapt and become more independent, not having that resource. So the project I'm working on is pretty much going to be like a scavenger hunt with art. I know other people did like seed scavenger hunts and stuff, so I kind of took that idea and thought of, you know, my pottery, because it's not like a mural or something where you can paint it and it's there for all to see and it's weatherproof and whatever, you know, little mugs and bowls can't really be out on display on the outside for, you know, anyone to see. So I'm thinking more 10, because now that I'm independent and doing it all on my own, 15 sounds a lot, but I'm thinking of making like 10 unique pieces, mugs, bowls, vases, whatever, and hiding them throughout my neighborhood, which is by Ideal Market. I know there's like an actual name for it, but I'm not really sure what that is. So yeah, my neighborhood's around there. So I'm thinking of just like every day for like the like 10 pieces, so like 10 days in a row. I'll hide the stuff, give a little hint on social media through like Facebook and Instagram. And then like people can go out and find them. And so not only is it like an activity to go out and explore your neighborhood, it's also a way to like come home with a free ceramic piece, which I'm proud of my work. You know, I want people to come home with it. And I think it's really nice during this time, like, you know, to go out and bring some joy into your house and some beauty. And I think it's really good for COVID because obviously it's an outside thing. People are like, things are opening up, so it's not as dire, but people are bored in their house, you know, being on their own. So this is an actual reason to get outside with your family and whoever and see your neighborhood. And I think it's important to explore your local neighborhood because I go on runs sometimes and I'm like, I discover new things like seriously 3 blocks away. So it's good to actually have people like see what's out there. Well, I would like to say I am an artist based out of Boulder, and I am like constantly making stuff and trying to sell things and create a career out of it. So any support I can get would be lovely. I have my Etsy site that I sell most of my stuff on. I think I'm going to transition to a website, but all the links will be in my bio and my Instagram, and all the support I can get would be lovely.
My name's Don Cox, and I've been a potter here in Boulder since I moved here, which was, I think, around 95. And just that's what I've done since I've moved here. I've worked as a potter before. I grew up in Michigan, and I worked as a potter there when I got out of college. And then I also worked out in Maine for a little while as a potter. So I don't know, I just kind of fell into that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really know I could be an artist like growing up. So, but it's always what I was drawn to. So, sales wise, it's really affected me. This time of year is really when I was hoping to make some money selling my work. It's usually, I'm part of the Boulder Potters Guild, and that we have a spring sale and a fall sale. And I really gear up for that spring sale, as all the members do, or most of the members do. And then, we kind of like winter is kind of our dead time for, after Christmas, sales kind of die. And then we're hoping to spring back, this time of year. And so that's affected me a lot. All the shows have been canceled, like all the summer shows that I applied to have been canceled. And the co-op on the Pearl Street Mall is one of my outlets, and that all got shut down. So, and they're struggling to pay the rent on the mall. It's super high. So, although it has helped me, like, I never really embraced the whole online selling stuff, and so it's forced me to do that, which is good. And so we came up with the idea, of giving cups away to essential workers. And I actually I had some mugs on hand because I'm still working on the ones that I'm making for the project. And I gave some away to people in my neighborhood. And it was fun. And it was kind of, I don't know, nice to see that they appreciated it. So I live right here next to Ideal Market. So I gave one to, actually two to the coffee shop that I frequent. And then across from them is Audrey Jane's Pizza. So I knew her a little bit, so I gave her one. And then we have a post office right in Pharmaca here, and so I gave one to the postal worker, the clerk that was working that day, and one to one of the Ideal cashiers. So no, I mean, it's been fun, and I've never really applied to many like grants and things like that. And it's nice that Boulder offered that. So.
My name is Emily Marie Passos Duffy. I'm a writer, performing artist, educator, and collaborator. Like so many people, I was pretty significantly affected by COVID-19. Over 3/4 of my income is earned through providing live entertainment. And with the pandemic and so many places shutting down, I was in a lurch financially. So in the financial sense, I was personally very impacted. I was fearful about making rent, qualifying for unemployment, and just generally what was to become of me. I think many of us have experienced existential dread of some form since this all started. So that's been the case for me. I also had 2 residencies that I was set to participate in this summer. One was postponed and one was canceled. But this has also been an opportunity for me to reevaluate my priorities and deepen into my artistic practices. And that's been really cool to lean into. The project I'm working on is titled The Neighborhood, a Poem. And this will be an ongoing project beginning likely in August. And there will be an online component and a material object component. QR codes will be placed at locations within a 1 mile radius from my home, following usual walking routes that I take. And these codes will allow smartphone having passerbys to submit lines anonymously to collaborative poems, following place-based prompts, encouraging them to consider their relationship to place and to one another. So each of these kind of poem stations will be part confessional, part dispatch, part writing prompt, part grounding exercise. I'm very interested in the relationship between space, place, and how we kind of see ourselves, our identity formation. And part of this project for me is an inquiry into people's connection to these places that I also inhabit and pass through regularly. And my hope is that this will support a deeper understanding of the neighborhood and the people that are active in it. So this project will be documented and, through photos and writings, along with the final collaborative poems that'll be shared on a website and will be accessible for people to read. There will also be a creative map that'll show the locations of the poem stations. And since I live around the east end of Pearl Street, kind of between 19th and 22nd, the map, the 1 mile radius, is going to be in that general area. And again, on that feedback and engagement piece, you can follow me on Instagram at DuffyLala. That's where I'll be sharing updates on how you can participate in the Neighborhood of Poem. You can also follow Writers Warehouse, and that's writers.warehouse, to connect with the work Ellie and I are doing through our residency at the Boulder Creative Collective. And I'd also like to share to anyone watching, stay engaged and keep paying attention to what's going on. Lead with your heart and not your ego. Learn the difference between those two sensations. Whatever you can offer, that's your gift to the moment of movement that we're in. And maybe that's childcare for a friend while they attend a protest, calling your representatives again and again, making art, donating, fundraising, hosting reading groups. We need all bodies on deck to dismantle the violence that's built into our structures, and we need joyful imaginations in order to do that. Tony Cade Bambara says, the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible, and I think it's everyone's role to work to make violence unimaginable. Black Lives Matter, defund the police.
Hi, my name is Christopher Warren. I do art under that name and also under Beatnik Prints, Prints. And my art usually consists of topographic map reinterpretations. Right at the beginning, it pretty much cut everything off at the knees. I had 2 projects that were a definite go that got canceled, and then 2 projects that were like in the works that got canceled, and then some other ones that just were kind of an inkling at first, and they all got canceled just very swiftly all at once. There's still new calls for public art going out on the internet, so that's promising that the public art that is the majority of my income is still happening, and hopefully I get selected to do some of it. That's not new to COVID. That part's regular, all-time stuff. Yeah, so initially I wanted to do a mural of the topography specifically of my neighborhood. I'm up on near Iris and Folsom, so the Parkside neighborhood. And I was going to a couple neighbors to try to ask them if I could paint on their fence or something, and no one was answering their doors, obviously. And I turned around after this one house. I didn't get an answer for a second time. I turned around and saw these people I'd talked with before in their yard gardening, and I went up, talked to them, and I asked if I could paint something on their fence. And they said, what can you do with this old tree that got struck by lightning years ago? And it's just been a 20-foot stump in their yard essentially since then. And I remember, I've lived here long enough that I remember when that tree got struck by lightning. It was super loud. So in these times of COVID, a lot of people are going on walks with their dogs or just to get themselves out on a walk and having conversations with different people they see along their routes. So I felt that once talking with these homeowners, painting this tree in an interesting way would be a great way to spark conversation with neighbors as they walk by. And as we've been painting, like the first day I was painting with my neighbor who's been helping me, like within an hour, people walked by and said, "Oh, I remember when that tree got struck by lightning," and just that conversation started right away. And so many people remember exactly when that tree got struck by lightning, which is cool because I absolutely do as well. So I've enjoyed that part, and just talking with community members and people rolling down their windows and just screaming like, "We love the tree" as they drive by. So it's been great. Got to meet some other neighbors, actually have a first conversation with people I've seen many times in the neighborhood but never actually talked to. So just that simple connectivity of talking with people you see around all the time and haven't had the chance to actually introduce or talk in any way. I think that's kind of what the tree is bringing out. And I've seen other people talking on the sidewalk about it in separate groups while we've been painting. So it's not just while we're painting. So that's kind of cool. It's been a great little holdover while I apply for other art projects the past couple weeks. Hopefully I'll hear good on some of those eventually. But it has been nice to just work on something for hours on end that's not inside my house. That has not been the case otherwise. So like I actually get to come home from a day of work. I'm like, oh, I'm tired. That's good. Instead of just, working on stuff on my computer for 10 hours or what have you.
So my name is Courtney Giblin, and I'm a visual artist. I primarily identify as a painter, but I enjoy other forms of creative exploration. I like doing multimedia, just starting to learn ceramics. I've been wanting to be an artist since I think the age of 6 or 7, and I studied art at the University of Oregon. And most of my work, I would say, is very conceptual in nature, and a lot of it explores energy. So I actually moved to Boulder a handful of weeks before COVID-19 hit. So it's been an interesting ride, one, just in terms of networking and meeting people and getting to know the city, but then not because we're all in lockdown, right? But also art-wise, I had connected with another local artist, and we were going to do a studio share, like off of Pearl, for First Fridays, Boulder Arts Week, and then open on the weekends for just like walk through traffic and open studios. And obviously that has not been happening. So it's been a pretty big halt, I think, in sales. Everybody's just struggling, and as is the name of the game. Yeah, so I decided to branch out of like anything I've ever done before. I did a giant 8-foot by 5-foot outdoor rainbow weaving installation. And I think that I ended up finding, I think as a lot of people did, just this connection to rainbow as a symbolism of hope and light and inner spiritual awakening and peace and all that. And so I wanted to create something pretty large to kind of spark joy and bring happiness to my neighborhood. I used reflective materials, so they'll reflect light. And I think just trying to like grow that light in times of darkness was the goal. It'll be up for the next 2 weeks in the Whittier neighborhood, and then it'll be up
for July and possibly longer in Table Mesa, and it might go somewhere else as well. So we'll spread the hope. So the piece is called Token of Hope. And I guess I just hope that it inspires acts of kindness and brings that light and connection, a reminder that there's good times to come. And it's up now. So part of the reason I installed it was it's also coinciding with Pride Month, which is important to me. So I'm excited to offer a big rainbow for people. And then I also just thought, when offering something to the community, is it my community in my neighborhood? Could it be all of Boulder? Could it be the community of like social media? And so part of me hopes that people can like photograph with it. It's a really fun, playful piece, and bring some light into the social media world as well. I'd like to just say thank you. I've been trying to get to Boulder for a long time, so I think Boulder is a really amazing town, and I think the city of Boulder creating this opportunity for creatives is such an amazing idea, and for creatives to be able to use art to like give back to the community is just a beautiful
My name is Eddie Capacha, and I do large-scale photographic murals on the sides of buildings, and also as a photographer, I have a unique style where I double expose in camera, primarily focusing on photographing women and the empowerment of women. Without going into all the deep personals, it was definitely a super challenging time just within my family and household. And as a creative, I do a lot of work for festivals and run production for clothing companies and whatnot. And immediately I lost all of my work and kind of went into a state of panic. And I'm a seamstress. I have a clothing company. And so immediately, or I wouldn't say immediately, after a couple weeks, my work pivoted to making masks. And so I started a whole mask company off of COVID. I've never have produced for such a demand before in my life. And it was a saving grace, and it was a lot of work, but now I have a company called The Citizen Mask. And then also this project came up. I just feel like there's actually been a lot of support for the arts in different ways. I feel like I've tried to get a grant from the city of Boulder for years and haven't been able to get it. And now I feel like, they're really reaching out and supporting artists and encouraging, bringing art to the streets. And I think that's really exciting. So I put up a mural on the side of the Wendy's building in South Boulder. I actually don't live down there. I live in North Boulder, but I live, out in the meadows. So there's not a whole lot of places to put art, but I really feel like that particular building, which I have other art on, is just like a center pivot point in the middle of Boulder. And I put up a new piece. It's not directly related to COVID. Like, it's not like, this piece speaks to COVID, but what I'm really interested in art doing is inspiring people to like rise up into themselves, to find a sense of empowerment. And, especially during that time and even this time, it's like, how do we use art to inspire? Like, I used to create some like activist art and I'm like, wake up people. And it was like all angry or all intense. And I just feel like it wasn't really authentic to my expression. And I just realized that like all of my work is about inspiring people to rise up into themselves and to find beauty and to find peace, and not that everything's all like oovy groovy, but to like step through the fire and bring their power to the world. And primarily women, but I feel like it speaks to everyone. Well, one of the things that I've been liking is to cruise around Boulder and to see the projects up. I really hope that they create a map of all of the work and, because I'm sure there's tons of pieces out there that I don't even know where they're at. And yeah, and I feel really supported by the city. Like, I feel like they value their artists and they value this project. And so I mean, I feel like I'm not as scared to like go up, put up renegade art or, go put up a piece, because I feel like that's what they're saying is like, create some beauty, Boulder, like come out and like see that we're all out here together in this. So, yeah.
My name is Emmy Lindsay. I'm a student at CU Boulder and I study music education. My primary source of income is I help direct a children's choir in Denver. Yeah, so as you can imagine, children's choirs stopped happening when COVID became a thing. And so I lost that job. I also worked in different capacities in the College of Music. And so when CU Boulder went to online classes or to remote learning, all the ways that I was involved in school, like ensembles and interacting with prospective students, was a big part of my my life at the College of Music. That all ended. So there was no musical interaction anymore, and that was tough. So what I did is I built, I call it a piano. It's a bare bones piano. There are literally 8 keys. I built one of these pianos out of PVC pipe. So I study music education, right? And a big part of my life is introducing kids to music and making it accessible and fun and intuitive. And I know there are lots of kids who live on my street because I see them riding their bikes around all the time. So I built this little piano, put it in my front yard. The PVC pipes were attached to a board and you hit them with sticks and they would play different notes. It was a fun physics project trying to figure that out. And so then I also printed little half sheets of paper and put them in mailboxes so people would know about the piano. Yeah, so it was lots of fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Initially, I started this project because I lost my income and this was another source of income, but it really was like enriching and fun to think about these kids and to see them on the street playing. And yeah, so it turned out to be like a more satisfying experience than I expected to have during COVID. So I'm glad that it was an opportunity that I had.
My name is Emily Marie Passos Duffy. I'm a writer, performing artist, educator, and collaborator. Like so many people, I was pretty significantly affected by COVID-19. Over 3/4 of my income is earned through providing live entertainment. And with the pandemic and so many places shutting down, I was in a lurch financially. So in the financial sense, I was personally very impacted. I was fearful about making rent, qualifying for unemployment, and just generally what was to become of me. I think many of us have experienced existential dread of some form since this all started. So that's been the case for me. I also had 2 residencies that I was set to participate in this summer. One was postponed and one was canceled. But this has also been an opportunity for me to reevaluate my priorities and deepen into my artistic practices. And that's been really cool to lean into. The project I'm working on is titled The Neighborhood, a Poem. And this will be an ongoing project beginning likely in August. And there will be an online component and a material object component QR codes will be placed at locations within a 1 mile radius from my home, following usual walking routes that I take. And these codes will allow smartphone having passerbys to submit lines anonymously to collaborative poems, following place-based prompts, encouraging them to consider their relationship to place and to one another. So each of these kind of poem stations will be part confessional, part dispatch, part writing prompt, part grounding exercise. I'm very interested in the relationship between space, place, and how we kind of see ourselves, our identity formation. And part of this project for me is an inquiry into people's connection to these places that I also inhabit and pass through regularly. And my hope is that this will support a deeper understanding of the neighborhood and the people that are active in it. So this project will be documented and, through photos and writings, along with the final collaborative poems that'll be shared on a website and will be accessible for people to read. There will also be a creative map that'll show the locations of the poem stations. And since I live around the east end of Pearl Street, kind of between 19th and 22nd, the map, the 1 mile radius, is going to be in that general area. And again, on that feedback and engagement piece, you can follow me on Instagram at DuffyLala. That's where I'll be sharing updates on how you can participate in the Neighborhood of Poem. You can also follow Writers Warehouse, and that's writers.warehouse, to connect with the work Ellie and I are doing through our residency at the Boulder Creative Collective. And I'd also like to share to anyone watching, stay engaged and keep paying attention to what's going on. Lead with your heart and not your ego. Learn the difference between those two sensations. Whatever you can offer, that's your gift to the moment of movement that we're in. And maybe that's childcare for a friend while they attend a protest, calling your representatives again and again, making art, donating, fundraising, hosting reading groups. We need all bodies on deck to dismantle the violence that's built into our structures, and we need joyful imaginations in order to do that. Tony Cade Bambara says, the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible, and I think it's everyone's role to work to make violence unimaginable. Black Lives Matter, defund the police.
My name is Leah Brenner-Clack, and I live in Boulder, and my creative career is mostly administrative, and I founded Streetwise Boulder, which is a mural festival around art and activism last year, and have been working in public art mural projects for the 5 years before that. And so about a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I got into making pottery. And so I take classes at the Pottery Lab here in Boulder. Do mostly hand building and sculptural things, and really just like to experiment and make things without an agenda. For my work with Streetwise, it definitely affected the after-school programming that we do. So we had some programs with Westminster School District that got shut down in March, and so that kind of shut everything down. I mean, everybody was just sort of on lockdown in their house. So the bonus of that for me was to have time to actually just make art myself and use that as a therapeutic thing. The Pottery Lab was closed, but still gave us some resources and were firing things for us. So we brought, able to bring clay home and work on projects there. So it was a real gift to be able to have the time and space to focus on my own creativity and not feel so pressured to just work a lot. My project for the grant is sort of got started for me with a group that I'm in, Boulder County Arts Leadership Forum, and through that group we've done art abandonment projects. So we've gotten together and made art to leave around the city for other people to find. We did a project like that up at Colorado Creative Industries Summit. Last year it was super fun, had a lot of people involved, and it's just a really fun thing to do, is to leave art for people to find. So I started doing that with some of my ceramics last year too, and made these little, I'm calling them like little totems, but they're basically little wall hangings and or sculptural things, and leaving those around Boulder. And so I took that idea and wanted to make these with a little bit more of a home-based theme for this project. So, I do a lot of hearts and eyes and houses, and kind of combining those together and making these little wall hangings that I plan to gift to my neighborhood or my neighbors in the form of like free art drop points, and sharing them. And my neighborhood is Martin Acres. I really appreciate the opportunity to make art for this cause, and find this cool way to connect with my neighbors even more. And it's a really special thing to be able to do. So I appreciate that a lot.
My name is Jason Graves, and I am a professional artist, muralist. I own a screen shop here in Boulder called Apollo Inc. Do a lot of graphic design, merchandise production, and just get involved in a lot of different creative, projects, things like that. It's kind of tough to say, on the art side of things with mural production and stuff like that, I had to postpone a lot of work. And, some projects were, also canceled. But, with art, you just got to find ways to keep moving and pay the bills or whatever. And then with the business side of my life, with the print shop, I basically had to just put my employees on paid leave and do all the work that I could find for the shop to do to keep it afloat until it was safe for everyone to come back to work. So I've been kind of busy just maintaining and keeping things afloat, I guess. I took the funds that were awarded to me and approached different clients of mine and, in my network, and found one who wanted a mural, and I went pretty big with it on Arapahoe Avenue and 33rd, on the side of the building where there's a few different shops in there. Jimmy John's is in there. Crystal Dragon has been there forever, and other offices and storefronts. So, I applied the funds from the project to a bigger project to try and make more money for myself and bring a bigger piece of art to the community. So, I think I did that pretty well, I guess. So the neighborhood is located down the street from my shop, Apollo Inc., and it's probably a block away. So I've spent almost every day here, besides when I'm out painting something, for 15 years. So I feel like I've brought some sort of vibrant new energy to the area, something people can look at and appreciate and brighten up their day. It's not super literal. It's more just a piece of public art that's big and bright and hopefully appreciated by people when they see it. I guess what I would like to add is I'm very thankful that I was chosen for this project and awarded this. At that time I wouldn't say I was really down on my luck, but I was unsure of what was going to happen. And it was definitely something that gave me, a positive outlook. And I felt supported by the community and the arts, by the city of Boulder and all of that.
My name's Julia Williams, also known as the Designosaur, and I'm an artist, muralist, and illustrator here in Boulder. I mostly do large-scale murals, but I also do a lot of art licensing for like t-shirts, apparel, and illustrations for local companies. It's been pretty difficult, honestly. At the beginning, I had a lot of projects canceled and, you know, felt like I couldn't go out and get any more work because most of the, you know, industries that I work in were really suffering. So I had to kind of adapt and do some different things. And in terms of just, I don't know, just how it's affected my life in other ways, I really need a lot of like, you know, input and stimulation and like new experiences and stuff to be able to be really creative and like make my art really effectively. And also being around like a community of inspiring people I really rely on that. So having all of that kind of go away has been really difficult. There's this place that I ride my bike all the time, just over by Gun Barrel near King Supers. It's this bike underpass that has this huge cement wall that's completely blank, and I had always wanted to paint it. So I was like, you know, it would be great if I could do a big mural on that could foster community connection for the Gun Barrel community. So my work project was to do a few initial designs for that and then to get feedback from my community about it. So I don't know if you had participated at all in the 8 p.m. howling that was going around during the lockdown. I thought it would be super fun to do a pack of wolves howling at the moon because so many people in our neighborhood were doing that during when the lockdown was the worst. So I was like, that is a great symbol of community solidarity during this time that, you know, isn't directly like representative of COVID later. It'll just be a beautiful mural, but it's kind of a nice reminder of something that we all were able to do together when we were separated. So I did a couple of designs and then sent out a postcard to 300 people around the area and had them vote on which design they liked best. So yeah. And then hopefully I'll be painting that in the fall, I think. Just that I hope, I don't know, I hope that other artists are finding ways to, you know, make this time as productive and not, you know, not losing hope, because there is work out there, and I've been picking up more work recently, and you know, this will be over sometime, but yeah, it's kind of hard right now. So hopefully we can all, you know, stick together and look forward to when we can see each other in person again.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Spencer-Johns. I'm an artist in Boulder. I do drawing, painting, and printmaking mostly. I've taught extensively, and I have produced coloring images. And I'm working on a children's book. Well, COVID-19 affected me in a lot of ways. In order to keep my boat afloat, one of the things I do is Airbnb. So that's been completely closed down. I have a major show that I am supposed to have this coming December, but now it's on the maybe list. It's a fundraising show for the Taos Pueblo Senior Center, and I've been doing paintings and prints for this show, and I've been working on this for about 3 years. And you know, it's not going to be a big moneymaker for me because so much of the money will be going to the senior center to help the elders. But that is a derailment. And then residencies, potential residencies get derailed. And then I teach art, and so I had to close down my teaching studio, and I've taken all my classes and I've created Zoom classes. So the project that I came up with was one where I wanted to do something where neighbors could get together in a non-threatening way and do something creative, whether they were an artist or a non-artist. And so I took some of my coloring images, which are all local landmarks, you know, Tom's Tavern, Trident Bookstore, Into the Wind. You might not know any of these. And then I changed them and worked on them so that they would be in a different format. And I invited all the neighbors to participate in Zoom meetings where I would send ahead of time the PDF that they could print out. And if they didn't have a printer, I ran around with copies to neighbors. And we would just sit and color and chat in a hopefully a non-threatening, connective way. And then we could show each other as we were going along and get excited about what other people were doing in their choice of color or in their choice of medium or something of that nature. And then when it was over, the participants were asked to post their coloring page in their window so that it would again enliven visually the neighborhood and show that connection of participants. Well, what I'm excited about is that it's starting to blossom to beyond this neighborhood as well, but yet still contained in certain arenas. The bottom line is, if we eliminate the arts, we eliminate so much more than a pretty picture. And art is really what connects us all. Music, theater, dance, visual arts. It's how we do connect. And it's also how we stay peaceful, how we stay loving, and how we stay honoring of our planet, each other, and whatnot. So I think it's really important for the arts and the artists to continue to find ways to reach out, to pull people back into humanity.
So my name is Kathleen Lanzoni. I am a fine artist. I paint a variety of subjects, and I say fine artist because that encompasses a lot. So I do gallery work. I also paint murals, which is what I love to do. I teach watercolor classes, and I do plein air events as well. So it's a combination of jobs, but it's all painting. So I'm pretty fortunate that way. Well, as for most everybody else, it changed a lot of events that I had planned. So pretty much I had a packed spring and early summer. Pretty much everything got shut down. So I teach in person, which is no longer a possibility. I was going to teach a 1-week watercolor workshop in France, and unfortunately that got canceled. And then, which was too bad because we had a full class, so that was too bad. Yeah, so, and also some plein air events got canceled. So those are when you're selected to go to a location and paint for a week. And those obviously all got canceled because it's all in person, and then the exhibits as well. So now I am teaching on Zoom. Never heard of Zoom? in February, and now pretty proficient at Zoom. So I've been teaching on Zoom, and I've been doing some plein air painting, solo, which is really fun, and a lot of exterior murals, which is great. So yes, so I was so honored to be awarded this COVID-19 neighborhood mural project, because as I said, I do paint exterior murals a lot and interior murals. So not doing interior murals right now. So this gave me the opportunity to be outside literally in my neighborhood when COVID first hit, and I needed something to, for my energy and just to do something for the neighborhood. I put a chalk mural on my fence, which faces a well, traveled road where a lot of people go for the hiking trail. So anyway, so I put a chalk mural on that wall, and it seemed to make people very happy. So that was terrific. So then when this opportunity came up, I said, okay, I'm just going to extend this. So that's what I did. I got my neighbor's permission and I went from my fence to their fence, and then continued it. So they, at the beginning, they said just temporary, which was great. And then they said, okay, let's make it permanent, because they saw permanent look nice. So I made some of it acrylic and some of it chalk. And they seem very happy with it. So that's what I did. So it's for the whole neighborhood. And again, it's a road that a lot of people use. The church, there's a church. We have a church in our neighborhood. It's right there. And then a lot of people take it to get to an open space trail. And the neighborhood has been very supportive, and people go by, oh, this is great. And, all kinds of positive comments and lots of questions. And yeah, so it's fun. It is great to be part of a neighborhood, and it is encouraging that everybody's getting out and talking with each other and being kind to each other. And they do like seeing the color. So, put sidewalk chalk on your sidewalk. I mean, people love it. It's fun. It's fun to be out with the neighbors, and it gets you outside, and you could socialize at a distance. So for those who really need it, get out and see your neighbors. Yeah. Yeah.
My name is Katrina Miller. I am a video producer. I am also a director of live concerts, and I do cinematography as well. COVID-19 has greatly affected my life and livelihood. This is the way that I make a living, mostly through concert videography. So you look at venues in Colorado like Red Rocks and E-Town and Boulder Theater. Well, those are just a few of the places that I work, and those places are closed. I never imagined once that Red Rocks wouldn't be open and I wouldn't have a job for the summer. This is what I've been doing for 6 years. So it's greatly impacted me financially, and it's made me have to really try to think of other ways to make a living and support my family. The project that I'm working on is going to be a film. It focuses on the Black community in Boulder, and the Black community here is very small. And with that, a lot of times we already feel pretty isolated from the community, just being that there's not so many of us. And now we're stuck in our homes, and especially the elderly segment of our community. They have a very vibrant life at church, and all of a sudden, with the churches closed, the Black community is not able to go there and not able to really have this sense of community. So I'm following in my piece one lady. Her name is Elmira. She's 90 years old. She's lived in Boulder for 40 years. She helped start the choir at that church, and she really built her life around the church. And now with it closed, you watch her kind of fading away and her quality of life just deteriorating. She's from what I understand, she was a very sharp woman, knew so many gospel songs and had everybody's name memorized. And what you see now during COVID and the quarantine, since she's been at home, is that she's beginning to forget a lot of things. And the tragedy of it all being in the Black community of Boulder is that we have a lot of undocumented history. And I have lived here 20 years, and there's still a lot of things that I'm trying to discover, even though this is something that I have been looking into since I moved here at age 18. So when you have the elders in our community that are being negatively affected with this quarantine, with this isolation, mental health can start to be affected, as well as the memory. And how are we going to collect this history? You know, a lot of the country is waking up that there's a lot that we need to do as far as bringing equality and representation to the table. And it's sad, it would be sad if right now when we're having this realization that we lose these wonderful people in our community because of the isolation that they're feeling, and they're not able to tell the stories, or even worse, they just fade away in some other aspect. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. You know, I work with a lot of people that are in this creative industry, and we are truly struggling. And it's not only the financial aspect, it's just, you know, feeling needed creatively, being able to put something out there. You know, I've been lucky enough that I have a lot of resources on hand where I can create. So I've been able to create a couple things right now, but not everybody has been so lucky. So it's amazing that this is creating an opportunity for creatives in our community to do some meaningful work. So thanks.
Hi, my name is Kevin Hoth. I am an artist, photographer, educator, and a father as well. I've been working in photography since about 1994. My obsessions, I would say, are, you know, evidence of time, compression of time into singular works, and I guess kind of combining space photographically, I guess, from one vantage point, if that makes sense. As far as COVID affected my life, my livelihood, my artistic practice, the main thing that happened was in March, I was teaching 3 classes at CU Boulder, and so all of those classes had to move fully online. So that was quite a large change in the way that I was delivering my teaching, the way that I was interacting with my students, of course. I tend to make a lot of work about my personal situation, my life, and a lot of my work is actually comes out of dealing with difficult situations in my life. So I almost use my artwork as therapy in a way. So for me, like dealing with this new situation that was traumatic, there's a lot of loss involved and grief. I actually I've been pretty productive, I feel like, especially March, April, May, just making a lot of work. So basically what I wanted to do was take people's screams, you know, so when we're in a time like this, I really feel like in our societies, we're very rule governed, right? We do things a certain way. We don't really let our wildness out a whole lot. It's very, everything's very regimented and that sort of thing. And I just had this idea of basically letting people scream, recording the screams, and then somehow translating that into like a cyanotype photographic print. So I've seen people do things with sound waves before, and I thought I could maybe make that work. So I haven't actually gotten some good results yet, so I'm still sort of testing it out. My plan was when COVID hit, my plan was to do this project after COVID, and obviously this was, at the time we thought, oh yeah, it'll be over in 6 months, and I thought I'll do this afterwards when people can come to my studio or come somewhere and scream into a microphone. I would have the sound go to a speaker, which would be underneath a dish of water. The cyanotype paper would be underneath that. I would shine a light through the water, through the ripples, and then it would kind of imprint onto the paper. Obviously, we got a social distance, so I thought, oh, people could actually call me and do this, or they could record themselves screaming. I could take, and if this doesn't work with actually translating directly the sound waves, what I'll be able to do is do something like this. where I take the sound waves and I make sort of a graphic image that I use to make a print from. But I still like the idea of this catharsis because I feel like we don't, in our society, we don't have ways to really fully express ourselves unless we're in therapy or we're screaming into our pillow at home. So I think more and more we're probably all feeling this grief and this loss and this need to sort of viscerally express our emotions. So I like the idea of being able to facilitate that, even if it's, I don't fully know the therapeutic benefits, but I like the idea of it. Everyone just needs to be safe out there, wear masks, and take care of yourselves. Everyone just needs to treat yourself as much as possible and be safe. And if you're not being productive right now, don't beat yourself up over that. I definitely think we all just need to do what we can in this moment. It's challenging for everyone, so.
So my name is Robbie Herbst, and I'm a violinist. I live in Boulder, where I have a teaching studio, and I've been a freelancer for a few years, although most freelance work is not happening at the moment. And that's why I decided to put on some concerts in my community so I can keep on performing in that capacity and include the other musicians in the area who are in a similar situation. Before COVID, I was playing with a number of orchestras in the area, from the Boulder Phil, which is pretty close, all the way up to the Cheyenne Orchestra. I drive up to basically every month to play a show, and all of that work just got canceled or postponed. And it's just like a huge source of income that I've lost, not to mention weddings I was contracted to play, or chamber music performances. All of that is just basically had to be canceled or rescheduled or put on hold. So yeah, that was like a huge blow to my livelihood, I would say. I'm still able to teach remotely over Zoom, which is good. I still have my students, which has been very helpful. But yeah, other than that, I would say that COVID has affected my livelihood profoundly. So my project is called Music in Martin Acres. Martin Acres is a neighborhood that I live in South Boulder, and it's a pretty simple idea. I've just been putting on these front yard shows because I have a good space for setting up for performances in my front yard, and I live on a pretty quiet side street. So I, put up flyers in the neighborhood, got the word out to other musicians who live in the same neighborhood, and the response has just been tremendous. I've gotten almost 20 musicians who live nearby who have expressed an interest in participating, and it's like well more than what I'm able to program or figure out what to do with. And we've had 2 concerts so far, and both of them have had over 70 or 80 people. We've been really careful with social distancing. We tape off places in the street for people to sit, and larger spaces for families to sit in, and everyone wears masks, and everyone's been super respectful, and they understand that it has to go well or we won't be able to do it in the future. So I just think it shows how important live music is to everyone and to my community in particular. And I think that these shows have been very cathartic for all of us because it's something that we've missed and maybe not even consciously been aware of how that affects our day-to-day lives. But then when you are re-exposed to it, it seems suddenly so much more important than it did before. So it's just been a wonderful experience, and I've been very grateful for the Arts and Culture Council giving me sort of the impetus for starting this. Well, only that this has been an experiment the whole time, and obviously in some regards the stakes are pretty high. Like we have to make sure that it's safe at all times, and if that doesn't happen, then it can stop abruptly. But in terms of what the music is and what the concerts look like, I've just been trying to keep a very open mind, and I would my priority is always that these concerts serve the community and the people are hearing what they want to hear, and musicians are able to put on projects that they're excited about. So I'm just excited to see how this evolves. And given now that there's a space for something like this and a support from the community, I think that it's just a lesson in what we're able to do without the institutions that we rely on, and how that can be scary, but also open up new possibilities creatively. So I think that's what I really look forward to in the future with this. And it's something I would also encourage other musicians who live in other neighborhoods to think about, how this can be a chance for new ideas and new creativity.
Hi, my name is Seth Bixler. I'm a violinist, and I'm currently a graduate doctoral student at CU. So it's affected me in a number of ways, personally and professionally, but more to the professionally side of things. Just everything has been canceled. Concerts and rehearsals, that how I make my money, all of these things have been canceled. In addition, a lot of students, some I teach online, but some are not wanting to do that. Finally, like summertime is wedding season, and it's usually when musicians, especially string players who play in a quartet or something, can make a decent amount of money. And obviously all of that work has been canceled. Playing music is inherently like a very social thing. You don't go play a concert for nobody, and it's rare that you would play a concert completely by yourself. And so both on stage and from a performer audience perspective, it's just like something feels like it's missing from my life. Part of my life and part of what I do is play music with and for other people. And so the idea is to sort of bring miniature concerts to people who can't really leave their homes. Just sort of set up safely away from their house, but in the front yard or on the sidewalk in front, and play a miniature concert for them, and bring a fellow musician with me to play this like very loosely defined concert. And the idea is that if somebody in Martin Acres, so it's like a specifically neighborhood oriented project, if somebody in Martin Acres knew of somebody who was living on their own, isolated, they would be able to send me an email, and we would go and play that concert. And so I've been sort of talking. There's this woman, Marta Suarez, who is a community organizer in Martin Acres, and we have finally a list of potential homes to go visit when we can get the project started. So.
My name is Scott Rowland. Primarily, I'm a video editor, but I also work as a photographer, motion graphics designer, or DP, whenever it all makes sense. I own a video production company based in Boulder called ALOC Media, stands for A Life of Choice. We provide professional, cost-effective video and photo solutions for artists, brands, and businesses. COVID-19 has drastically affected my life, both personally and professionally. When WHO first declared this a pandemic, all of my financial opportunities went out the window. Within a week, I had no idea what I was going to do. My career felt like it was on the rocks. I just wanted to get out there and be of service to the community and, help the people that I've been working with and, find a way to support what's going on. But shortly after that announcement, one of my roommates got sick, and then my girlfriend, and then myself. Um, and we remained hopeful that it wasn't COVID-19. It was mild for us, but on April 19th, we're sitting in the kitchen and realized that none of us could smell the onions that were being cut up. It was like a wall right in front of my face, and literally nothing was going through. And I knew at that point it was time to get tested. So I went and did that, and sure enough, it was positive. I was sick for almost a month. It was up and down, some days much worse than others. I wouldn't hope that anyone would get sick, and please do your best to stay safe if you do get sick. And I'm looking forward to the day we put this all behind us. My project is basically creating content for musicians to help spread their work in these trying times. I live in the West Pearl neighborhood, and I've been lucky to have neighbors who are also very interested in music. So we've connected on that front. And then I also have a group of friends who are musicians themselves. And so they're struggling to be able to make money right now. And it seems like it's not coming back until things get reinstated and they start allowing concerts and stuff. So it made sense to me to find a way to help both of those demographics. And basically how musical artists are connecting with their followers right now is through live streams. So what I've been doing is working with the artists to get them to pre-record their concerts. And then what I'll do is I'll make promotional content either in the form of informational graphics or short videos to help promote upcoming events. And then for the event itself, I'll create intro and outro titling cards that will introduce the artist, and then it'll play the concert itself, in which I'll do minor edits to make that look a little bit better. Because again, another hard thing about live streaming is making the content look good. So people are using their cell phones or very cheap camera equipment. And while I can't go and see them in person and film it myself, I can at least make what they have look as good as possible. And then the closing title will have information, again, about who they are and then how to financially support these artists, either through Venmo or PayPal or Cash App or whatever they're using. Yeah, and a couple of events that I've been part of so far are a Rise Online Gathering, which happened on May 2nd. There's the Rocky Mountain Virtual Music Festival that happens every Friday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then I'm also right now working with a jazz artist named Carl Lantham to put some content together for him to live stream. Really, all I want to say in conclusion is I want to give a big thank you to the Boulder County Office of Arts and Culture for putting on this grant. I want to thank Create Boulder for funding it. And I want to say to the struggling artists out there that, this is going to be over eventually. To stay strong, life will get better. Keep practicing your craft. And for what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to reinvent myself as we start to reintegrate. This is the time to do it.
My name is Will Becky Brunswick, and I use they, them, and he, him pronouns. And I am a cartoonist in Boulder. I am also a MFA student at the California College for the Arts low residency MFA in comics program. So I'm work on longer comics and graphic novels, but then also I just make shorter cartoons and zines that I sell at zine fests and fairs around the country. So I had 3 shows scheduled for this spring. One was the Denver Small Press Fest, which has been rescheduled, but I hope that it still happens, but I don't know. And then also the Denver Zine Fest, which has been canceled until 2021. And then also the Vancouver Comic Arts Festival in Vancouver, British Columbia. And that was also canceled. So those were my like 3 big comic shows. So they were places where I would have sold comics and zines, and they didn't happen. Yeah, I just sort of finished it up yesterday. So I made a zine that was 8 pages. So a zine is like a mini comic book, or, well, you can make zines from whatever you want, with whatever you want in them. It's a very DIY kind of art form, but I make them with comics. So mine had like 8 comics in it. It was 8 pages long, and I made it, drawing it like first by hand and then on my iPad, and then I printed them out and bundled them up and mailed them off at the post office in Boulder yesterday to my neighbors. So my zine was about, it just had comics from like little moments in life in quarantine. So like snapshots of like starting a garden and then having it get snowed on when we had those 2 big snowstorms in April, and then about like running and living on the Boulder route and going for runs, and about like the trips outside and getting all ready in your protective gear. So just sort of like little snapshot comics. They're diary comics, which is like another whole genre of comics where people write like personal comics about their life. So they're like both humorous, but also just sort of like a little snapshot portrayal of what my existence is in quarantine. And so then I mailed them to like my 25 closest neighbors. I live on the corner of 2 streets, so like 10 down one street and 10 down the other street. So hopefully people will enjoy them and then put them in the recycling or save them or do whatever they want with them. But I hope to like connect to my neighborhood and sort of introduce myself to my neighbors, or just share some art with them, or have people just take a moment to pause and like laugh at these little silly comics that are like hyper specific to where we live. The neighborhood around Casey Middle School. So we're like across Broadway from the Mapleton Hill area. I've really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to make the comics, and the comics are sort of like I hope what I'll get out of it is more connection to my neighborhoods or my neighbors, and that they'll also get more connection to me. Like I've gotten to see my neighbors more, and I mean in the course of the quarantine I've actually introduced myself to like the other people who share a building with me. So that's been really a connective time.
Yeah, so my name is Si Wong, and I'm a PhD student at CU in the Department of Geography. And I am a social scientist by training, so I have conducted a lot of oral histories. Creatively, I also do some audio arts as well as podcasting to help create like a more of a creative and community effort into oral histories.
Hey, I'm Ariel Milkman, also a PhD student in the Department of Anthropology at CU Boulder. And yeah, I'm a social scientist, so I use mixed methods to try to understand what makes humans human. And one of the things I like to use is audio. So I've worked on a number of podcasting projects and also oral history projects in the Denver, Boulder area. I think, for people who are creatives and researchers and writers, in some ways the day-to-day hasn't looked that different, right? Because I previously did some of my work from home and I'm able to have the privilege of doing that now. And then I think in other ways, it feels like it's like there's this narrative that it's laid bare the inequalities and problems in our system already. So I think that folks in this industry have already had a problem of having kind of precarious work conditions and different gigs, and that problem just feels like it's more precarious and more scary now. So yeah, I think those are the main things, like other people in this industry, I've had sort of gigs that got canceled and conferences that got canceled, and then in other ways, some more flexibility to kind of work from home and support folks.
Yeah, I would say that it's been challenging, both as like an educator and an artist, in terms of like the availability of funding and of gigs, especially ones that require like in-person or face-to-face kind of interactions. And I mentioned a little bit earlier that I'm also an educator as a graduate student. So you know, there's a lot of uncertainty around classes and whether or not they'll be like conducted in person and online both during the summer and the fall. So for example, I was scheduled to teach an in-person class this summer that was canceled. And recently my department has been able to, you know, put me into an online course alternative, which has helped in terms of just sort of like being able to supplement my income. But it's been really challenging because, you know, I learned about that course like very, very recently, and that wasn't something that I was scheduled to teach. So it's just like switching mentally to like a very different mode of like thinking about yourself and how you present, you know, either like pieces of education or pieces of art, and how like other people are receiving it or unable to receive it.
Yeah, the project is called Homeward Bound, and it is about housing in COVID-19. So I think the theme of the project is to record some oral histories with people living in Boulder about how COVID-19, what their housing experience has been like with COVID-19. And I think that's because we started to see that this was affecting people really differently based on what their situation was, right? So there are some people who are living alone who are feeling really isolated. There are people who are navigating how to date with this going on. There are people who are living in co-ops and having to kind of think collectively. And then I think across the country, we've also seen more of a movement about housing organizing, because the United States and Colorado in particularly were already in a housing crisis before COVID happened. And now we have all these issues with unemployment. And so it's actually a really interesting time for like anti-eviction campaigns and people organizing for mortgage and rent moratoriums. So yeah, that's the idea, to kind of like bring people together and make people feel less alone through audio, and to capture this historic time in Boulder.
We're really hoping to kind of get a diversity of oral histories in our project. And we've been trying to just kind of like think through the ways in which we can solicit folks that we can talk to who are very not traditional, who might not be able to be online or like see calls for this project. So we're kind of actually proactively reaching out into our communities. I've been really impressed that the city has been really incredibly responsive in terms of like allocating the funding and being able to put out grants for something like very quickly after shelter in place happened, and sort of enable these projects to already get off the ground.